make the moves that you need to make to dominate your dynasty leagues.
But he's going to get the targets. He is a deep ball threat. If he could get a 40-yard touchdown out there and get you some points.
I would say never build around a running back in Dynasty. It's that simple.
No.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Death by Dynasty, episode 1. So we're very excited to get started. Thank you for tuning in. And basically, this is going to be a podcast where you're going to come to get your kind of gears turning, your mind in the right thought process to make the moves that you need to make to dominate your dynasty leagues. I'm Dan Bartels, and I'll now toss it over to Tyler. Tyler, what do you got to say?
I'm just excited to get this going. I feel like the more and more I've gotten into Dynasty, the more I realize there's really not that many resources out there for people who really want to go all out, really want to go in depth. So I'm excited to be able to really just be able to come in and give everyone that content they need to be able to bring their Dynasty team to that next level. So I'm ready to get it going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, there really isn't that much out there for people to consume dynasty information. So really, like, we're going to do the research for you guys, but also, of course, you're going to form your own opinions. The biggest thing I think is just like to have people out there talking about dynasty to even be able to bounce ideas off and things like that. So if you're out there listening, like, you're basically going to be talking with us and basically kind of having that conversation with us. So really quickly, we're going to go through our current dynasty league right now. And so this league, we are in a half-point PBR league, and we're going to be moving to super flex next season. We got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, 15 bench spots, and 3 IR spots. No taxis. I love our league. I love how deep it is. 12 team. And I love how deep the bench is too, honestly. And looking forward to moving to super flex. But for me personally, I know I'm rebuilding right now. We'll get into a lot more about like our teams and stuff like that in later episodes. But I'm rebuilding right now. Super flex is going to be a challenge for sure, though.
Yeah, especially transitioning to it after the league already got going. We made the decision. I want to say it was 2 years ago, or 2, maybe 3 years ago.
I feel like we ended up pushing it back 1 more year, which I guess was a good thing. But
even at that point, we still didn't realize how big of an impact it was going to be, even to this point now, where I think it almost flipped to where at first everyone was undervaluing how much a quarterback was going to be, to now I think people are borderline overvaluing. But I could even be wrong on that, because they're gonna, if you don't know quarterback,
it's crazy because the value of quarterbacks has completely skyrocketed. And like you said, we definitely undervalued them in the past. But just want to also say, obviously, this is our dynasty setup, but with everything we discuss, like, I know every dynasty league is a little bit different. So we'll make sure to always be discussing with other types of leagues in mind. We'll say, we might be evaluating a trade, and we might say, that value is perfect for a super flex to get this quarterback. But if you're only in a 1 QB league, you're going to be looking at more giving up, this pick. We'll make sure to keep all that in mind. If you are a running back premium, tight end premium, we'll keep all that stuff in mind. But regardless, like, I know, Tyler, you've been dominating fantasy leagues for a while now. How many fantasy leagues are you typically in each season, and what is kind of what do you think is that sweet spot?
It changes each year. I feel like I'm finally to that point where, like, I found where I want to be with 3. I think, honestly, I'm lying, actually. 2 I feel like is the number. I'm at 3 right now. 3 is great. I think 2 is that magic number. And I think what it is a dynasty league, your core dynasty league, and then 1 redraft league. And that's it. Right now I'm in 2 redraft leagues and our dynasty league. And the only reason I say it's okay to have 2 is because if you're good in one and not good in another, then at least you have that one to fall back on. But I for sure don't pay as close attention to my not as good redraft.
So yeah, Dynasty for me is always like the main focus. How many years has our league been going? I actually, off the top of my head, 5 years?
I was gonna say 4 or 5.
It's
I was trying
definitely
to figure
flew
out.
by, but we're pretty deep into it right now, which is pretty awesome. But like I said, I'm rebuilding, so I kind of like need those other leagues to keep myself excited for like a quicker win. But yeah, the problem for me is I feel like I'm in a different redraft league every single year, or multiple different. I was in two brand new redraft leagues this year, and it's tough because it's just like not the same people every year. You don't know how people are going to be trading. I don't really know everybody in it. And so that's really tough for me. So like but I definitely agree with you right off the bat. Like I think three is okay. I think two redraft leagues, the one dynasty league is okay. I like having those two leagues to be able to like I said, just like focus on winning now, because in my dynasty league, I have to stay patient in the moment right now. Which honestly is one of my biggest mistakes that I have made, but we will get to that in a couple minutes here. One of my biggest mistakes as far as like just getting bored and on wanting to win now when I should be staying patient. But before I get to that, I feel like there's actually a lot of news coming out of the NFL with on the injury front this from this past week 14 here. I mean, quarterbacks left and right, like going down for one reason or another. A lot of concussions. Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, um, Tyler. I don't know what's up with Tyler Huntley. He left the game too, though. I believe for the backup for the Ravens, who are cannot get away from injuries at all. But yeah, I mean, like, what stands out to you, Tyler?
Injury wise, I feel like you just always gotta have a handcuffed, have the backup, especially that's why it's nice having those 15 bench spots because I feel like even so now you look on anyone's bench, anytime someone gets hurt, I look on someone's bench or I try to find a player they're already on someone's bench. So anytime you have an opportunity to pick someone up that someone's handcuffed, I feel like that's something that you how often players get injured these days.
Yeah, in our league, it's so deep that like most of the time these players are already on teams, but there's so much change, especially towards the end of the season, that like you definitely still got to keep a lookout. But what else like kind of has stood out from you as far as news after week 14?
Number one, that the Eagles are the most dominant team in the NFL is first and foremost something that I want to point out, and that if you can have anyone on their team is someone who you want to look at fantasy wise, just looking for those star players. But um, to be quite honest, something I want to point out with Dynasty, I haven't been paying as close of attention because now that I'm officially eliminated from playoff contention, I know that I'm playing you this week, and I'm pretty sure I got the win, but I need to check back on the news of what happened this past week here.
Yeah, I think you got the win. I kind of am happy to be where I am in
I think I hopped
the
up a
second
couple
overall
spots in your
pick.
draft.
So I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, uh, there was a lot of injuries at the quarterback position that you're gonna kind of have evaluate. A lot of them might be back next season, next week, anyways, heading into the playoffs. But like Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, when he got hit, I thought that that was going to be one of those like, oh, he might need to get carted off because he was like blankly staring, like he had no life in his eyes. I guess he'll be okay and maybe even back next week. Oh yeah, Debo Samuel was another one. Luckily, he
He's okay though. That's
he's
crazy.
yeah, he's gonna be okay. Because he got carted off and he was crying and everything. Luckily, that was only a sprained MCL. They're playing on Thursday night football, so he's not going to be back so quick, but they say he's going to be back before the end of the regular season. So if you got him, you'll have him at some point during the playoffs, I guess. So that's
I hit
good.
up I hit up one of my boys from California who's from the Bay. He's a Niners fan, and I was like, he right before Debo got hurt, he hit me up saying he's like, I can't wait for that Niners Eagles championship. And then literally Debo got hurt like the next play, and then I just hit him up saying that he has to be relieved. And he's like, he has to be out like 4 weeks if he had to have the card come out and have it be that dramatic.
Yeah. They've again another team that's dealt with a lot of injuries, specifically at quarterback. So yeah, the Eagles' kind of pathway has keeps seeming to get easier and easier heading towards the playoffs. Nothing's ever set in stone. Nothing's ever that easy, but feels pretty good to be an Eagles fan right now. But I will say their young quarterback, the 49ers. I'm pulling up his name because I'm blanking right now. This oh yeah, because he was Mr. Irrelevant. It's the first time Brock Purdy, right? It's the first
Yeah.
time Mr. Irrelevant has ever started a game, I think, in the NFL. Is that I think that's true. Uh, but he's probably picked up in your league already. But if he's not, by some chance, you go spend all of the fab you have left just because you never know. I mean, it's the
I
end of
feel
the
like that's
season.
every person that I'm ever gonna say to pick them up. It's like they're probably picked up in your league most of the time because it's like you have to go deep to find players that like are just sitting on your waiver wire. Besides receivers, there's some receivers out there that you can find, but
Yeah. And
outside of
honestly, just
receivers, there's
because we're
really
getting into
nothing out
that right now, and we've talked about it a little bit, like what do you have anybody off the top of your head, um, or just a mindset as far as like this late in the season to picking up players off the waiver wire?
That's the thing. I have kind of like two answers here. One, like if for whatever reason you're competing and you need someone off the waivers, which is would be pretty hard to believe, your team should be pretty set at this point. But if you do need someone for whatever reason, like you have Debo, I think Nelson Aguilar is someone you could look at. He's only owned in 4% of leagues, and Jacoby Myers is out, so he's definitely going to get more target shares. I know you probably think that's a homer answer with the Eagles, but he's going to get the targets. He is a deep ball threat. If he could get a 40-yard touchdown out there and get you some points. So I think he's definitely someone to look at, and he definitely could be available on your waiver wire. So I think he's someone to look at if you are short term right now. Someone who I think that could be available, and he's only owned in 5% of league, which is unbelievable to me. He's owned in our league, but next year is gonna have a huge impact. Is Calvin Ridley. If he's not owned, you should probably get him. Like he's gonna be on the Jaguars, which I know isn't a great spot for receivers, but if he goes there, I mean he was elite and everything says that he's gonna be ready to go. So I think Calvin Ridley, someone you can look at. At quarterback wise,
How
Desmond
much
Ritter,
you
if
said
he's
he's
getting his
only
first
owned
start,
in 85% of the leagues?
5%. Calvin Ridley.
Unbelievable.
According to Sleeper. I don't all my stats here is according to Sleeper, which I find is just unreal, which it could also be going off standard league. But either way, Calvin Ridley, if he's available, pick him up. And then a quarterback wise, Desmond Ritter for the Falcons. He's getting first start.
Yeah, Desmond Ritter. Yeah. I guess he was going to get his start anyways, but they're sending Marcus Mariota to the. He's another one that's going to the injured list and injured reserve. So, yeah. For me, like we already briefly mentioned this, any handcuff specifically at the running back position, you need to pick up any backup. And I'm going to give the Browns as an even deeper example. And so some of this is going to be stashed for the future, but obviously Nick Chubb's their guy. Kareem Hunt is actually, starts for a lot of teams in Dynasty just because it's kind of a little bit of a two-headed attack there. He can be a deep flex option, but I picked up Jerome Ford. First of all, obviously this is a future play for sure. So like he has not gotten many offensive snaps at all, but he did really well in college. He played for Alabama for 2 seasons and then for Cincinnati for 2 seasons. He rushed for averaged over 6 yards a carry. I think that their running back situation is going to look a little bit different next season. Kareem Hunt has been asking for a trade. We thought he was going to get traded before the season. Then at the deadline, I think that trade is going to come. Like when you hear those rumors, I personally feel like he's going to get traded at some point. And then Dearness Johnson's a free agent in the offseason as well. For Jerome Ford, it's really more like he's going to get some more opportunity next year. It's just what is that gonna like? What is he gonna look like with those opportunities? And obviously, Nick Chubb is the starter there for a long time, but you never know for a guy what his situation might look like a few years down the road. Again, for a rebuilding team, another big pickup that I think I got this year. I'm probably going to say this name wrong. Chigozium Okonkwo. I think he's I think I want to know where he's from. I think he's in like 85% of the leagues. So like that isn't like he's out there still in some leagues. and he's a rookie tight end
That was a
drafted in the
great
fourth
attempt at
round,
the
and
name.
he just he didn't get drafted in a lot of dynasty leagues. But again, like now, like we said before, a lot of these guys are going to be picked up already. But if he's out there, get him. Get any backup running backs. I say like get anybody on the Jets right now because that situation is pretty fluid. Like Zonovan Knight seems like he's become the guy now with Brees Hall being
Yeah,
injured.
if he's available, he should be owned everywhere. He's
For sure.
on
Because
a
that's a
team
guy who's
already.
like putting up good numbers. So like I mean, that might be a two-headed attack next year. He might find himself on another team. Like who knows what goes down, but like he could potentially, start on some teams in the NFL. So yeah, like I said, any handcuff. This is again if you're in a deep league and you just want a wide receiver to potentially help you in case of injuries. Richie James, he's replacing Wendell Robinson. He's nothing special for the future, really, but yeah, I mean, biggest thing for me, always be looking quarterbacks, like even backup quarterbacks in the super flex are now like so valuable because there's like three backups that might be starting next week. And in a super flex, like if you need someone to spot start for you as a QB2, like pick them up and go get them. Like I don't want to say be stashing like five backup QBs, but that you might want to stash one or two that you think um maybe it was a QB battle in camp and like you want to stash him for the season just in case things change, something like that, or someone who's injury prone at the quarterback position. So yeah, that's
You
my thoughts on the waiver wire pickups. Do you have anyone like
you
it's
want a deep sleeper that I'm pretty sure they're available in our league, which
all right. Well, I'm gonna go
it's not
pick
that
them up right after you say this then.
I was gonna say you could. Speaking of handcuffs, it's like a deep handcuffed here. I'm gonna say this name wrong. Keen Nguangwu. I apologize in
All the
advance.
weird names. All right.
Minnesota's running back. Him and Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler's on IR, but Keen, if Madison leaves after in this offseason when he's a free agent, he's a running back who steps in. He's leading the NFL in kickoff return yards right now.
Mm.
And he's owned in 0% of leagues. According to Sleeper, I don't know the metric that Sleeper's taking, but I'm just
That might be
that's what I just
starting, and
quoted it.
that might be the starting percentage though.
It says rostered.
Mm.
It says rostered 0%, and then the starting number was also 0 right next to it.
Yeah, I love
But either way,
Madison,
he's
by the
available
way.
in our league.
All right. I definitely see Madison going somewhere else next year. Dalvin Cook is injury prone as a lot of workhorse running backs can be, and he's just getting old and like he's just the way running backs' lives work. Like
I'll
he's
say
done.
in general, running backs are completely overvalued, I think, in fantasy. They just come and go. There's like
Yeah.
those handful that are like great and they are good year after year, but even so, like those guys sometimes are garbage. Like Alvin Kamara, like no disrespect, but like I have in my redraft league, he's so frustrating. He blows this year. And it's not like he doesn't blow, but like his fantasy situation
Yeah.
blows. Or like you go to like Joe Mixon
Jonathan
every
Taylor.
year is
I had the first
horrible. Now
overall
he's
pick
okay.
in two of my
Jonathan
redraft. I
Taylor,
had the first
perfect.
overall pick. I knew this was going to happen. I was like, how can I not pick Jonathan Taylor? If I don't pick Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to look stupid. But if I pick him and he gets injured or is just bad for some reason, and he kind of screwed my season in both leagues. So yeah, I mean, I would say never build around a running back in Dynasty. It's that simple.
No, and because there's always going to be someone else you can get. And like James Robinson, I thought I had like the future with him. Now he's droppable, basically. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like, there's so many players like him that you think of like, you could have had like when we first drafted, I'm pretty sure like Melvin Gordon went like real early. And like now, like you can't even get him a trade
Yeah.
of him for a
That's a
fourth.
guy you might just want to drop. I mean, someone's gonna pick him up. Like he's gonna have some sort of value, but he's never gonna be an RB1 or probably not an RB2. So yeah, that's a guy. Anyone else waiver wire pickups or guys that you're just done with and gonna cut?
There's two receivers that blow my mind that like how far they fell off after they were like at one point superstars. I'm not sure whether they're both droppable, but one definitely is. Kenny Galladay, like drop him if you still have him. And then Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones is like he performs at times and he has his games. But both of them, when they're on the Lions, they're great. Speaking of another like Lions guy, like Khalif Raymond, Mark Ingram is another one. Like Mark Ingram's a guy probably he'll have his game. He'll have his one game a year, but not worth having on your roster. Uh, Hilliard too. I feel like he's a backup, a handcuff that you don't need. He's up there in age, as like we're saying, running backs are so replaceable. Um, by the time the Titans are done with Derrick Henry, Hilliard's not going to be relevant anymore anyway. But
Yeah,
watch
the
it for
shelf
that.
lives of these guys.
Hopefully, I didn't just jinx Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like as soon as they hit their prime, you should probably like if you're ready to win right now, hold on to them for that season, the next season, but sell them at their highest point at that point. No running back is typically in their prime for 3 seasons. Like that's very, except for those guys who just are dominant, sure starters. You're like, Christian McCaffrey is going to be good. Obviously, he's dealt with a lot of injury. Like the Dalvin Cook is always your sure starter. But I would certainly, if you have Dalvin Cook, I would certainly trade him right now.
That's,
Guys
I
like
mean, the
that.
turnaround's so crazy. Unless you're competing right now and you're going for a championship and you think you can win a championship this year or next year, like you don't need a player like that that's 20. If they're 28 and older and they're not a quarterback, you probably don't necessarily need them. I mean, obviously that's don't take that situation for everyone, but for a lot of players, once they hit 28, 29 and you're not competing, trade them for a pick because
Yeah,
it's always going to be
100%.
someone.
If you can get a first for a lot of those guys, probably more than a first and a second, maybe two first, depending who it is. Like that is so much more valuable than hanging on to him. I would definitely
Are
take two first for Dalvin Cook any day of the week. I traded him when he 2-3 years ago now for a first, and David Montgomery, I think, was involved in the trade. So it was, like I could get a lot at the time. That wasn't, David Montgomery was having a good season, everything like that. So yeah,
for
you get a lot out of him, and that's so much more valuable.
for what it's worth, I traded Derrick Henry straight up for a first. So that was not a good trade, and I don't think I'd recommend. Like, I don't think I would do it again. But at the time, like, I mean, he's getting up there. I'm pretty sure. What is he? 29.
Yeah,
Uh, he's getting to. Let me see.
you can.
How old?
He's a guy you could tell, and yeah, because he gets so much of that
28. I
workload.
mean, at some point he's gonna break down, and I'm not anywhere near competing. And at the time I traded him really early, and we're gonna talk about the mistakes and like things not to do. For me, it's definitely panicking at times. And
Yeah,
that was with Derrick Henry the first couple games. I was like, oh, I just got to get rid of him. I got offered a first. I was like, cool, let me do that. Got rid of him. Definitely could have got way more now at the time, but at the same time, that first turned into the fourth overall pick this year. So not going to be the worst thing in the world either, but uh, just
yeah. The
turning him
first
around.
is
That turnaround's
exciting.
crazy.
You definitely could have gotten more from him, but at the same time, like his true value right now is not worth much more than a first. People will overpay for him, and sometimes it's if you're ready to overpay, if you're ready to win, you overpaying. I'm not like against overpaying if you truly think you can win this season, but in the grand scheme of things, is he worth more than is he worth a first and a third? Maybe. I think that's pretty much what I would cap him off at, because let's say you get one more great season out of him. Basically, I'd rather go draft someone in the first round who is likely to be at least have that longevity. He's a younger player. Younger is always better in Dynasty. For the like in the grand scheme of thing, you are trying to get younger to help your team in the future. Even if you're a competing team, like if you're ready to win now, I said, obviously overpay and everything like that. But you got to also keep in mind, like, what is this going to look like in the next 3 years? Am I just going to be awful because my team is so old and I don't have anyone to trade because people know that their age is catching up to them? So, but another biggest mistake for me It's kind of similar to what you said about panicking, but it's really like just getting bored. I mean, middle of the off season, especially, and like I love Dynasty. I love being able to run it like it's a real team. I love being able to trade during the off season. It's just that itch for football, especially like it goes through like lulls. I feel like there's definitely a quiet period in like the middle of the summer, but as like August comes around and training camps start up and things like that, uh, yeah, I really just want to trade. I want to, and so for me, like I said, I'm rebuilding. And I just have to be patient with my players. I've done it with a lot of players already, young players who looked good. And I thought, yeah, they look good this season, but they're not actually that good. I'm going to trade them away. Trading away young players for me, I basically fleeced myself against you getting Zeke this off season, and I traded him back to you at the deadline, which I'm totally okay with trading him back to you at this point because I just needed him off my team. I needed to get younger. Zeke is still like putting up some good numbers. They love him in Dallas. Jerry Jones loves him, but I was like, I know I'm not ready to win, but I want to be a little bit competitive. Let me go out and get a guy like Zeke, who I understood that he wasn't, he was probably a little past his prime, but I was ready for him to have a bounce back season. He
He
is
is
bouncing
now.
back a little bit. He's doing pretty good, but again, I traded away Christian Kirk. So that was an awful trade. So really just guys like that. I did trade away
And then I
Elijah
traded him
Moore.
away too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So well, we've both done that. I traded away Justin Fields. Like, how long do you wait for a quarterback? I know that it was only a season and a half, but I just felt like the Bears had nobody. I mean, like the Bears, I just thought awful franchise who is going to let this quarterback die within their organization. I just thought it was going to be another one of those situations. Didn't have many receivers around him, didn't have much of an offense as a whole. And all of a sudden, he's athletic. So he's been able to run the ball a lot and make plays and stuff like that. But I just need to hang on to these guys just a little bit longer. Just need to hang on to them a little bit longer because his value skyrocketed in a matter of like 3 weeks. I got a first in the trade. You traded him away for what? A
It
first
was
and
it was a handful of picks there. It was Ayuk, a couple firsts were in there. I gave up a first. There's a second. There's a bunch of stuff going on in there, but um, it for the most part, it was like I got like a first and a second at the end of the day for him. Uh, but I feel like we should just dive right into the mistakes part of uh the mistakes of Dynasty, and I think it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying too, which I think they go hand in hand. Is a mistake that I feel like we don't do at all is taking it too serious. Is I feel like some people could take it like overly serious, like not want to make trades or like being like like getting really upset at themselves over like a loss or like doing like getting rid of a player. But at the end of the day, like just have fun with it. Like that, like you're saying, like if you get bored, like just trade it, like just do something, like make a trade, like
all right. Switching up the setup here. All right. Um, sorry, go ahead. As you were saying, well, I feel like you were saying, I feel like our league has a lot of fun with it overall. Like we create content for each other. We are creating like power ranking graphics and videos and holding press conferences. We just have fun with it, and that helps just the longevity of the league as a whole. Just continue, and that's what I want. I want to be playing in the same league from now until I'm 50 years old and just seeing like how things change throughout the league, what teams can finally overcome and stuff like that. So yeah, we just have fun with it, and I think that's big. Even when I'm rebuilding, even when my team is bad right now. And final thing from me as far as mistakes is just knowing our league and knowing what the future of the league is. Like we've said before, like we were moving to a super flex, and I think we gave ourselves enough time. Like we just weren't aware of what that would really look like until this season is the first season we were like, oh, QBs are all of a sudden really valued. I traded away Jimmy Garoppolo for a third. If you're a true starting quarterback in the NFL, which I think Jimmy Garoppolo is, he might be on another team next year. We'll see what his injury brings, but for his future. But like if you're a true starting quarterback, if you're going to start that entire season, I think you're worth a first. If you're a guy like Davis Mills going into this season, he probably wasn't worth a first, even though he started most of this season. There was we knew what he was, someone like that. But a guy like Jimmy G, even though he's maybe mid-tier quarterback, I think he's worth a first. Anyways, it's just about knowing your league, knowing where the league is moving, and valuing the right players. Quarterbacks are valued, wide receivers are valued in our league. Like we've said, don't value the running back as much. I have done that in the past. If you're a running back premium league, you value them a little bit more, but still, you got to know their shelf life.
I gotta throw this in there just because you're talking about value. Another mistake I feel like a lot of people make is over and under valuing draft picks, is because I've seen both ways where you'll want to offer like 4 firsts. People be offering, or they'll be like counter offering 4 firsts for it. I don't know. Name a random player who's pretty good. DeAndre Hopkins or AJ Brown, 4 firsts, and you're like, I'm not gonna, like, there's nowhere to go with that. But then at the same time, I have players that are like Christian Watson, who is an up and coming star, and I'll get offered like a 4th for them. Like, where are we going with this? Like, we're nowhere close. So I feel like it's knowing that right value so that you can negotiate, because draft picks, I think, are the best negotiating tool out there. So you need to know how to use them, and you can end a negotiation really, really quick. And I feel like there's some managers that you can't even deal with because of that. That you're not on the same page when it comes to draft picks. So there's no way you can get a deal done there.
I know that
so little times you can go player for player. You have to have a draft pick in there. You can't really go player for player these days.
Yeah, the draft pick is huge to just like add in, put you over the edge, especially if a trade is close and you need them to add one more thing. But yeah, don't send your worst trade offer. I know that people send that initial offer and they want to
don't do that
going, but don't send your worst trade offer. Send a legit trade offer that they could consider and go from there. I mean, don't you don't have to overvalue a guy, but don't be sending, because if someone sends me something that's just like so far off from what I would need, I'm just going to decline it and not even talk to them, as opposed to, okay, this is intriguing, let's have a conversation now, let's see where we can go with this.
Yeah, or if you're nervous, just send them a text, because then it's like they can't accept it like on the spot or anything. But at the same time, I feel like one of the best ways to negotiate is when you send a trade to someone, they're like, okay, we're like getting there. And then they send a counter offer and you're like, okay, like, cool, we're on the same page. Then you send the message, you're like, cool, let's get this done. Boom, 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 bada bing, bada boom. We got a deal. Be done. And I make a lot of trades. You can vouch for me. That's how it gets done most of the time.
I like making trades. Yeah, you do. Yeah, we're going to be talking about a lot more of this. We're going to be evaluating trades, especially as we go into the off season. We're going to be talking about the rookie draft coming up in the off season. It's going to be a great draft with a lot of quarterbacks. There's a lot to discuss every single week. You can catch us Death by Dynasty, and catch us on Instagram as well. Look us up, Death by Dynasty. But that'll do it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week as well.